everyone, welcome back to my channel and another tutorial. Today I am happy to introduce you to the Hell Bag by Catsiopeia Patterns. I learned so very much with this bag. It was my first time doing reverse applique. It is a zipper drop-in lining, which you know I have always been a little bit scared of myself and I avoided them like the plague, but do you know what? Having to do this tutorial, it wasn't that bad, especially if you are on a cylinder arm or even if you have a free arm on your domestic machine. In the pattern, it teaches you how to do it on a flatbed when it comes to doing the drop-in lining, and geniusly, all she did did it inside out and then top stitched together from the inside of the bag with the exterior being the inside, and then flipped it out. So it's really nothing to be scared of. I have overcome my fear of it, and I will be doing more zipper top drop-in linings going forward. So thank you so much, Bethany, for helping me get over that and face that fear. Another great thing about this bowler bag is this applique. This one is a skull, but really you could design your own and put it on this bowler bag as well. It is such a versatile bag to be able to do whatever your heart desires with that. Anyways, let me show you some of the features of this bag. So again, this has the applique. No purse bead on this one. I did do my straps differently because I really wanted to feature this pearl vinyl from Galaxy Customs. So I did dual colored straps on both my crossbody and my straps. In her pattern, she has rolled handles and they don't drop down. So keep that in mind. If you don't like the look of this, follow the pattern and she shows you how to do the rolled handles and they will stay standing up like so. Double zip closure. I did the inside of mine with waterproof canvas, but this is really fun on this side. You have two zipper pockets going the opposite way, one larger than the other. Show you how to do that, as well as two slip pockets. In the pattern, it does tell you to leave the foam a ½ inch out of the seam allowance. If you can, please do that, especially for the zipper panel things. And you'll see why when we get through into the tutorial. I did not do that. I did trim the bulk of it down, but I used a sew-in foam, so I couldn't fuse it at all. So you see me cutting it out of the seam allowance in the zipper panel through the video. So if I had done that again, I still would have done sewing in everywhere, but about ½ inch from where the zipper is going to attach to the zipper panel, I wouldn't have put foam there, and I would have just stuck that down with some tape and then had the other three sides basted on. That would have been a lot easier than what I did, but I show you how to get through that. Again, I always like to show my mistakes so you guys can learn from mine before you make yours. What did I use to make this bag? So my vinyls here, these are the pearl vinyls by Galaxy Customs. This is the key lime. This one is the amethyst purple. Absolutely perfect for this bag. I made my own piping using the key lime vinyl, as well as the piping cord that you can buy from Galaxy Customs. My hardware, the matte black hardware, is from Atelier Fiber Arts, and some of it is from Serial Bag Makers. You can get matte black hardware from both, so I have a mixture of the two in here. I use Pretty in Pink Sew Foam from Galaxy Customs as my main stabilizer. Again, you can use Pellon Flex Foam, you can use by Annie Soft and Stable, you can use Pellon Fusible Foam if you want to make sure you're keeping it out of the seam allowances. For interfacing, that's all I use. I used a waterproof canvas for my lining. If you're using a cotton lining, make sure you back that with a woven interfacing like SF101 or EB Fuse Light. What else to say about this bag? It was actually a really fun sew, and I'm just so happy that I got to learn some new things. So I hope you get to learn some new things too, and you will have fun with it. Anyways, let's get to making this bag.
Okay, you're going to need some rivets, number 5 zipper tape, some piping cording, a slider, 2 swivel clasps, 3 or 4 zipper pulls. I am using some rectangular rings so I can make my handles flop down, and some strap ends for those, and some D-rings. Okay, you're going to need your 2 side exterior and lining pieces, your 4 pocket lining pieces. Now I'm doing my straps double-sided, so this is for my crossbody strap, and these are for the 4 handles, or the two handles. Okay, and you need your exterior zip and lining panel pieces. Your overlay piece, I've actually gone and done some Giardini edge point paint around those corners. You're going to need your bottom pieces, your two piping pieces, 4 connector pieces for my drop down handles, 2 connector pieces for the crossbody strap, 2 pieces for your interior slip pocket, and your exterior and lining main panels. And of course some foam. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do my double-sided crossbody strap, double-sided strap, and my piping all off camera. If you need to know how to do that, classes are down below in the description. Okay, so to do my connectors, this is not part of the pattern. I cut these from 4 inches by 2 inches. And these are what I'm going to use for my rectangle rings to make it so my straps flop down. So you're going to take some double-sided tape and fold the long edges of these into the center line. Then go ahead and top stitch along each folded side with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance for all 4. Okay, so now we are on the wrong side. Going to put some double-sided tape on the bottom, put on a rectangular ring, and fold it wrong sides together for all 4. Okay, I've gone ahead and I've put foam on all of my exterior pieces. I strongly recommend cutting these 1/2 inch out of the seam allowance if you can. I use sew-in foam, so I have to do it this way, but I also have an industrial machine, so it's okay. All right, so let's do some placement of our overlay. As you can see here, I did do Giardini edge paint through the raw edges just to give it a nice shine and color. That's what you're seeing on the back, the messiness here. So you can use glue for this or spray based if you like. I'm just going to use some double-sided tape and put it in multiple places over the overlay on the wrong side. Okay, now for our placement of our skull overlay, we need to make sure we have a 1/2 inch seam allowance all the way around that the overlay will sit in. If it goes outside of this, it will be caught in the seams of the bag, and we do not want that to happen. So I've just gone around and made my border here. Now I'm going to adjust my overlay. This is before taking the sticky stuff off of the tape. This is just finding out my placement. So my skull will fit inside those 1/2 inch lines. For mine, it looks like it's going to be on a little bit of an angle, and that's okay as long as all parts of this are within that 1/2 inch seam allowance. Okay, and then I'm just going to grab a few pattern weights and place that on top here to hold it in place. And then starting at the bottom, I'm going to start taking off my double-sided tape and secure it in place. Once I have a few on the bottom, I'm going to go ahead and remove all the rest of the double-sided tape and then let it fall into place. Just like so. Now for the placement of the teeth lines, I've gone ahead and I have cut little slits where the teeth are so I can use them as a tracing mark. So I'm just using my Tandy leather wash away pen here and just marking my teeth line and then the little accent line at the top of the skull. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and we're going to top stitch all of those lines around all of the openings and then those lines that we drew. So I'm pulling my threads long here because I don't want to have any ugly back stitch start and stop points. So I'm pulling my threads long and then we will pull them through to the back here momentarily. So take your time doing this. I'm going to work the exterior of the overlay first and then come back and do all the detailing after we have this in place. I did a lot of hand cranking through the corners, as you can see. That gave me a little bit more control over my needle placement, especially in those tightly curved areas. Making sure my needle is down before I pivot. Okay, now I'm going to pull on my bobbin thread to pull my top thread through for where I started, and then continue on with my stitching. Now, when we get close to where we have started, we want to make sure that we're putting our needle down in that exact same hole that we started with, where we pulled those threads through. So again, I'm hand cranking to make sure I know where my needle is going to fall. Once there, I'm pulling my threads long again. I'm holding on to the threads, holding on to that bobbin thread so I can pull it through and pull that top thread through. And then I'm going to tie it off those 4 strands with 3 or 4 knots. Okay, and now I'm going to work on the other parts of this, doing the same thing. That is all done. Now we're going to work on putting the piping on. I've already done it on the back panel here. So I've gone around all of my piping and I put little notches all the way through because this is curved and this will just make it so it distributes that vinyl around easier. So I'm going to go ahead and clip this all the way around, evenly distributing that piping around all the curves. Okay, so that's done. And now I'm going to follow the stitches from when I made my piping as my guide for this. Strongly recommend putting on a piping foot or a zipper foot so you can get nice and close to that piping. Again, I'm just following the stitches from when we made our piping as a guide all the way around. It's approximately 3/8 of an inch. And do the same for the back panel. All right, so now we want to place our handle placement. So if you did regular handles, you'll be doing this exact same thing as well. So I've cut a little notch in the back of my panel or my pattern piece here, and I'm just using that notch as a placement for my connectors or for your handle if you're doing the handle. You want it to be to the outside of that little line or notch, and then I'm just going to use clips to put that in place. For my connectors, I have it hanging over about 1/4 of an inch just to give it a little bit more grab. Flip the pattern piece over and do the same on the other side. And go ahead and do the same with the front panel. Okay, so once you have these, you just want to match up those center marks just to make sure your handles or connectors line up, and mine do. And now I'm going to go ahead and baste these on. Okay, so now we're going to work on our side connectors. Now, because I used foam and I don't have it cut out of the seam allowances, I do kind of trim my foam, just the foam, back a little bit to make that bulk not so much. So with these connectors, just like we did with the smaller ones, we're going to put some double-sided tape, or you can use clips, on the long edges and fold the long edges into a center line. Okay, I'm going to take a little piece of double-sided tape and put it about 2/3 of the way up, I guess. Add my D-ring. And I'm going to fold this down about halfway and the bottom up about halfway as well to enclose those raw edges. A little more double-sided tape outside of the stitching lines on the back. A line 3/4 of an inch down from the folded edge. This is going to be a guide for when we're stitching this on, and 1 inch down from the center of the side panel. I'm going to stick this on with that double-sided tape, and then go ahead and top stitch this with a 1/8 of an inch seam allowance all the way around, crossing at that 1 inch line that we drew. Again, I have pulled my threads long so I can pull them to the back so I don't have that start and stop stitch as this is showing, and I am using very much a contrasting lime thread with this purple faux leather, so I do not want to have any ugly type of stitching showing. It gives us one nice long continuous line this way. Again, I like to take my lighter and just burn my threads a little bit. Okay, so I've already put in some rivets to secure those, backed with a little scraps of Decavol Heavy, trimming my foam a little bit out of the seam allowances again. And I'm going to match up on the bottom, my short end bottom of my side piece with the short side of my bottom piece, same with the other side. I'm going to sew across here with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, I am going to press my seams out so they are laying flat and top stitch down each side of that seam. And that'll help hold that seam open. And do the same with the other side. Okay, so now our zipper panel. So this is where I had wished I have kept the foam on the zipper side at least a 1/2 inch outside of that seam allowance, as I'm going to have to cut this foam away, which you will see later, but hey, that's okay. So I'm going to take some double-sided tape. Again, you can use clips. Take our zipper tape and put it right sides together with our exterior piece like so. And we are going to go ahead and sew across that. I have my zipper fit on with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, and we will do the exact same thing as we are doing with the other side of the zipper tape. Okay, so see, this is why I wish I had cut the foam out. So now I'm going to have to pull out my basting stitches from when I attached my foam to my zipper panels here so I can cut away this foam. Because we are not top stitching this at this place, it doesn't hold our seams out. So this foam makes it a little bit hard for when we go to do the drop-in lining. So I just pulled all of those basting stitches from when I put the foam on, and I am just cutting it outside of the seam allowance. Okay, so now we want to make it so the seam stays open for when we do our drop-in lining. I am using double-sided tape. You can use fabric glue here as well if you like. And we want to press that foam or that seam nice and flat like so. So this is acting as a base until we top stitch this into place when we do the drop-in lining. With the foam, it would have been impossible to lay this straight. That's why we had to cut it away. All right, so now we're going to take the zipper panel and our gusset piece that we had created with the bottom and side pieces, and match it nice and centered onto the top of those side pieces like so. And we're going to go across here with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, and now we want to make it so that seam is pressed down towards the side panel and then top stitch to hold it in place. And then we're going to do the same with the other side. And again, press that seam towards the side panel and top stitch. Now you're top stitching kind of in a loop here because we have a big circle. Okay, so now we need to find the centers of our bottom and our zipper panels. So I'm matching up the seams of where our zipper panels and our side panels met to find the centers, and then just doing small snips on both sides. Okay, so now on one of our main exterior pieces, we want to mark in on the bottom 3/8 of an inch in. Okay, and then we want to put this right sides together. So you're going to have to flip it kind of over like this, right sides together with the bottom panel, matching up our center points. And then we're going to sew this in between those lines that we made at the 3/8 of an inch, not going over those 3/8 of an inch marks. This is going to help give us a nice square flat bottom, even though the bag is curvy. And we're going to do the same with the other side. Match up that center and sew in between our 3/8 of an inch markings. And now we have something that looks like this. Okay, so now just on the gusset side, not on the main panels, just before our stitches end, we want to put just a little snip on that bottom piece. And that is going to help the gusset turn up so we have a flat bottom and then going into a curvy side. So you don't want to go past the stitching, just inside and only on the gusset piece. So now you're going to have to fold this out in such a way that everything is wrong side out. And we want to match right sides together, starting with one side, match up the top center piece. Put in a few clips, make sure your straps or connectors are facing down inside the bag so they don't get caught in the seams. Now with this being a curvy bag, I am going to go ahead and just do a few little scant 1/4 of an inch snips to help us get around those curves, and then clip it all the way around. And we're going to go ahead and sew this with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, starting and stopping where we had finished our stitching on the bottom. Now I'm doing this on my cylinder arm just because it gives me a little bit better control of the bag. And I have my zipper foot on once again, and that is because we are going nice and snug next to that piping. I am actually using my piping sewing line again, which I can see through this main panel, as my guide for where I am sewing. Then I know that I'm getting nice and close to my piping still, without going over top of my piping, which is very important. Okay, and you do the same with the other side. Now we are going to start on our lining. So we want to take our slip pocket pieces, put them right sides together, and sew across the top with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, pull it wrong sides together, and then top stitch as I have done here. Take one of your main lining panels, fold it in half to create a crease. Same with your slip pocket. Go ahead and center it on. And then we are going to base this on with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Down here, come up the center like so to create our 2 slip pockets. Now when I do my slip pockets, I like to come up about an 1/8 of an inch to one side of that center line, pivot, do a stitch, and then go down an 1/8 of an inch to the other side of that center line. I will also put a rivet right in the center right here for a little bit more stability. Now on the back of the same panel, we want to mark where we're going to put our 2 zipper pockets. So on the back, I'm just using my pattern piece to make those marks. And the first thing we're going to work on is our 6-inch zipper pocket, which is the top one. So I am using my ruler at that center mark, drawing a 6-inch line, and then a 1/2 inch down from that, I'm drawing a parallel line, connecting the 2 on the sides. From each of those short ends, I'm going to do 3/8 of an inch line within there. Same with the other side. And then in between those 2 lines, I'm going to draw a 1/4 of an inch line right down the middle, and then do my V's out to my corners like so. I'm going to do the same with the bottom, but it is an 8-inch zipper, so we're going to adjust to 8 inches and rinse and repeat what we just did with the top, just a little bit longer. Okay, so we're going to take our 8x8 piece. This is for that top zipper. We're going to fold it in half. Flip our panel down to the right side. So we have these right sides together now, and 3/4 of an inch up from the bottom, nice and centered, we are going to pin this in place. So I want to pin from the other side. So I'm going to hold this in place, flip over, so I can put my pins right through that center line like so. Okay, and then we're going to go around the whole rectangle with a short stitch. I'm using a 4. Okay, so that is done. So now I want to cut down that 1/4 of an inch center line that we made all the way to the short lines. And then cut into those V's, but making sure we are not cutting into the stitching that we just did. Okay, then we're going to push our pocket in through that hole and bring them wrong sides together. So go ahead and press this nice into place. All right, so mine is all pressed. So I have my zipper, my shorter zipper here. Now I have my pull closing to the left. I am going to use some double-sided tape. You can use some pins to hold this in place if you don't want to use the tape. And I am going to center the zipper within that opening and stick it down or pin it down, whichever your preferred method. So it is nice and centered. And then we can take it to the machine to sew into place once we have it where we want it to be. Again, my zipper pull is to the left with this one. And then we will top stitch around this with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. I'm just going to trim my zipper tape to match my lining piece here. Now I'm going to take my other lining piece, put it right sides together with this, secure it with clips all the way around. And we're going to sew this in place. So you want to make sure you're folding the main panel out of the way so you are just sewing through the zipper pocket panels or lining pieces. And when I'm sewing up these sides, I'm kind of looking to where the little triangle is that kind of gets formed when we cut it away, and that is deciding what my seam allowance is up and down the sides. And go ahead and trim off the excess. Trim it down to about 1/4 of an inch seam allowance or so. Doesn't have to be neat for this. One pocket done. Okay, so now we're going to do the same with the other pocket, but we want to make sure we have this one, the finished one, folded up and out of the way. So I'm going to fold it up and secure that with clips so I don't accidentally sew it into the other pocket. Now we're going to take our 10x6 lining piece and we're going to line it up right sides together, right underneath that zipper that we just did. And then pin through those rectangle lines of the 8-inch zipper opening that we have drawn out. And then go ahead and do exactly the same thing that we did with the other pocket. So I have sewed that around. I'm going to go ahead and cut my zipper opening like so. And push it through to the back. And give it a good press. Okay, but when I go to install my zipper, I'm going to make sure my pull is going the opposite direction as the top one. As you can see here, it looks great. And I went and put a little rivet in between my slip pockets as well. So while we're here, we're going to find the centers of our piece, top and bottom. Might have been easier if I did this beforehand. Okay, so now we are going to form our lining gusset pieces. This is done in pretty much the exact same manner as the exterior, except for now we are using a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Now for our zipper panels, we are going on the back side, we're going to measure up 1 inch and draw a line on the wrong side. And we're going to take some double-sided tape, and we are going to fold this into that 1 inch line. This is creating our lining zipper panel where we will be doing the drop-in lining. You can also use glue instead of double-sided tape here if you wanted. It's just very crucial that we keep those lines, those folded edges in. So now we are taking our gusset piece that we made and our zipper panel pieces we made, and we're doing exactly like we did with our exterior pieces. But we are using a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, and yes, it doesn't look like they will butt up to each other, and that is because we have our zipper opening already kind of made there, so there should be that gap right in between. So again, the lining pieces are assembled the same way. They are just using a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance rather than the 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. And again, top stitch those seams down towards the side panels. Okay, now you're going to take all of those pieces and you're going to assemble them exactly like we did with the exterior, with the only difference we're using a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. So on the bottoms here, we're going to mark 5/8 of an inch in rather than 3/8 of an inch in, and then sew everything with the 5/8. All right, so let's go ahead. I decided to put my nameplate on the back. Let's put these together. So if you're using a flatbed or a free arm on a machine, you can go ahead and do it the way I am doing it. If you're doing it on a flatbed, definitely follow the pattern where you will be putting these together opposite so you can sew the exterior from the inside of the bag. So if you're doing the pattern, you'll have your exterior piece wrong side out and your lining piece right side out, and you'll be putting your exterior into your lining. Because I am doing this on my cylinder arm, or if you're on a flatbed, we're going to do it as I am doing it now. So first things we want to do is take the gusset side where the zipper joins. And what I'm doing is I am using the stitching that I can see when I put my zipper on the exterior, and I'm putting my folded side of my lining pieces like just a scant 1/8 of an inch higher than that. So I'm using that stitching line as my guide. I am going to clip this in place just so it is all somewhere where I need it to be. And then I will be going a lot by feel when I take this to my cylinder arm to sew my drop-in lining to my exterior. So starting with those two bottom gusset areas, and then work your way around. And you can see here, you can see my bright green stitching there on the underside of my exterior panel. And that is what I am lining I'm lining my lining folded edges up just slightly above that. Then I know when I go to top stitch this that it's going to be caught for sure. Now, another thing you want to make sure is that that lining piece is not going to get it in the way of the zipper teeth at all. So make sure it's low enough. I said using that stitching line was a really good guide for me. Okay, so that's all done. And now we will take this and we're going to top stitch this with a 1/8 of an inch seam allowance all the way around. Okay, and as I remove clips, I'm just kind of doing a double check, readjusting my lining to make sure it is where I want it to be and holding it in place with my hands. And going very slowly, clip to clip, readjusting as I go. And then once this is done, if you use the handles like in the pattern, you are complete. And all I have to do is add on my straps. And we're done.
All right, that's it. That's all, folks. What did you think about that drop in lining? It actually was not very hard at all once you get past it. You just got to really take it slow and go with it. It's the first time I have done one with a zipper drop in lining on my cylinder arm, and I tell you, on a cylinder arm, it is 100 times easier than on a flatbed. I've done them on a flatbed and I struggled. But if I had done it the way Bethany does it in the pattern and had done it inside out, it would have made my life so much easier. I wish I had thought about doing that back in the day when I had tried it. Before, I was scared of them because it was created my fear. Anyways, I can tell you it will not be my last time doing reverse applique. I want to do naked bowler bags and do all sorts of applique on them now. It's lots of fun. Yeah, thank you so much, Bethany, for creating this incredibly fun and unique pattern, and I will catch you guys on the next one. Bye.